Okay, so this is my second attempt at the video. There was some kind of audio problem. I mean, it's my audio's not great to begin with, but it really got bad. It went into like studio mode or something. Um, this is more about his background and the type of person that you're dealing with. If your name is Luke Edwards, this video is not about you. um, the the character himself is 6'2". He's 219 pounds. He's blue eyes, light brown hair, 28 years old. Um, he's physically fit. He works out. He goes on jogs. Good 6 mile jogs. Real healthy individual. Not a smoker. Not a drinker. No drugs or anything like that. So yeah, this is going to be more about his fixation, his background, and what you're dealing with. I kind of just went through this, so it's a little weird going through it again, but we'll see how that works out. Hopefully, the audio holds out on me this time. I'm reading kind of at the same time, but we'll go through and try to make this work. As a child, Luke was very neglected. His mother was a very neglectful person. He when you're talking about neglect, you also have to consider that there are levels of neglect. His was way up there. He never really knew his father. There was a great distance there. Um, his mother didn't care about his schooling, his activities, his lifestyle. She just generally didn't care. So he had to learn to cook and fend for himself at a very young age. He was socially awkward. Their family was quite poor. She couldn't make ends meet with the job she had, so she was always trying to look for another guy. It doesn't help that she was an alcoholic, so most of her money was spent on alcohol. While he may have been verbally abused, he was never physically assaulted. He was never physically abused. But abuse comes in many forms, and he suffered a lot of those. Not so much the physical aspect of it, but more of the mental neglect, the verbal assaults, and things of that nature. And when I talk about neglect, I mean he's been locked outside in the snow during the night while the mom was inside with some guy. He's been locked in his room and forgotten about. He wore thrift store special hand me downs and other types of worn out, tired clothing because she just couldn't afford it. And if he got beat up at school or something like that, she just didn't care. It was more about, well, you've ruined your clothing, which wasn't good to begin with. This is the kind of environment he was constantly going home to. And then it didn't help that he was socially awkward. He's an awkward person, and he emotionally detaches himself from other people. Now, he's not violent unless you count his delusions, which we'll get into in a little bit. But he's not a violent person, and he's more or less just quiet and keeps away from people, socially detaches himself. And, from that perspective, he garnered quite a bit of attention. You can't be this great, good-looking guy without getting attention. And when you don't want that attention, it's difficult to push it away. And so his awkwardness only added to the fact that he started getting attention from bullies and things like that. And so yeah, it wasn't fun for him. When you're looking at his fixation for Ophelia, which is the woman that he's fixated on, you have to remember that he's been fixated on her since high school. He's 28 years old now. So you're looking at years of stalking and years of fixation. And he's built quite the delusional castle of what he believes that she feels. And he's rationalized behaviors, he's rationalized activities that she's done, a bad relationship that she may have been in. Of course it was bad because she wasn't with him. So this kind of rationalization has kept him going, but it wasn't enough. So there are other parts of this stalking that became disturbing. Photographs. He had hundreds of them, hundreds and hundreds of photos from year after year of her. Now, one of the things that I tried to emphasize during this story is that he didn't want to violate her privacy when it came to sexuality. He honestly rationalized that she would give this to him willingly, and so he didn't want to violate that aspect of her life, and so he didn't. Um, Instead, what he ended up doing was buying a type of doll, right? One of those large sex dolls. What are they made of? Latex or something? They're big. You know what they are? They're big silicone dolls. And he dressed it up in her old clothing. He got a wig that looked like her. Maybe he was sexual with it. I didn't really touch base on that. But he most certainly did a lot of things that were very disturbing. He would record her and show this to the doll, which he named Ollie. He would gratify himself to videos of her and then show those videos of him doing this to his doll, Ollie. And then, you know, he spoke to it like it was a living, breathing person, and he unloaded all of his burdens onto this inanimate object, and that in itself created a type of mental illness, but it was one that he was able to break away from later once he achieved his goal. So when it came to stalking Ophelia, this was a very long and tedious process for him. And he watched her all through high school, he watched her all through college, he watched her through some of her adult life, always photographing, always there. He rationalized a lot of his behavior. Let's say a homeless guy tried to approach her, he would stop that from happening so that she wouldn't be put in danger, and just assumed that she was very grateful for him doing this. He made a lot of these kind of rational uh, actions and justified them as she would be grateful if she acknowledged this. So the further you get into his delusions, the deeper and more I don't know, crazy, the more ill he really is. And this got to a point where he was begging for her to see him, as he was always there. He was at her graduation, he was at her job, he was at her coffee shop, he was at her house. He was always there somewhere. He was always watching her when he wasn't working. And he did work. He worked very hard as a construction worker, since his education is quite low. He's not a wealthy person, but he didn't spend his money frivolously. If he was to spend a lot of money, it would have been on Ophelia. And since he didn't need to do that, a lot of it was saved, which he would later use planning out his abduction of her. He got a cabin. He got everything planned out. He bought food for months and months and freeze dried it and all kinds of stuff. So he did have a long term goal. But really, when you look at the delusion of what was happening with him, it's all about, why can't you see me? Why aren't you looking at me? Just notice me. Just this once, notice me. That kind of internal frustration turned into a deep anger and a deep, very dangerous, um, violent outburst that can and does happen. So right now that he's kidnapped her, and we'll get into the kidnapping. I don't think I'll do many of these videos. But right now, if you were to break that delusion, which is not an easy thing to do, he's very twisted. It's very easy for him to rationalize everything he's doing. Oh, I did this because of her. I'm doing this because of her. She's like this because it's for her safety. He can rationalize a great deal of things. But if you break his delusion, he can become extremely violent and very dangerous. And so this is one of the aspects, the horror that I try to emphasize in this book is breaking his delusions can even become homicidal. He is a very dangerous person when he is uncontrolled and he cannot rationalize what's happening. One of the most vicious attacks that he did on her was when she said that she wanted to go home. It was just a brutal outburst because he could not, in his mind, rationalize what she was saying. She was home. Her home is with him. And because his brain could not wrap around what she had just said, he exploded with years and years of frustration and anger. And that was, a homicidal almost in nature. So, I mean, I think it was just his desire not to see her leave that stopped him just shy of killing her. So, could he kill her? Absolutely. He has the potential to kill her at almost any given time. That's just one of the risks that you're dealing with, and that edge is always there. Would he kill her? Not if we want the story to continue, so probably not. But you never know. The co-author could say, "Yeah, go ahead and wipe her out. I'm kind of done with this," and then he may just do that. She'll break his delusion, and he may just get homicidal and live with regret for the rest of his life, or find somebody else to attach himself to. Um, but this video is kind of stretched, so we'll talk a little bit more about how he abducted her and some of the steps he took on the way to that abduction in the next video. That'll probably be my last video for the night. I have some dental appointments and stuff like that coming up, so I'm trying to get some of these videos out before that happens. Until then, I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.